West Side Story, 2021, I should say. The Steven Spielberg retelling, I guess, a slight
Mm.
change around. He made a few modifications to the structure of the movie, but
Yeah,
obviously,
second adaptation of the original musical, you could say.
yeah.
First uh, film since the 1961 original film.
Which won 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Beloved. Um, why don't we just start with our general reactions to the movie? Then maybe we can get into some of the stuff around the movie, which I think is
Yeah.
also important to touch on. I saw it this weekend. Theater was not packed, and the box
No.
office is going to reflect that,
Mm.
or has reflected that. Um, However, I thought this movie was just really delightful. As someone that's seen the 1961 West Side Story, but not in a very long time, I didn't remember all the little aspects, so I had to go back and read about some of the tweaks and the changes that Spielberg made. Um, but overall, I felt like this movie was overwhelming in the best way possible. It was loud, it was colorful, there was a ton of movement, a ton of action. I thought the performances for the most part were really, really good. And so I was really, really pleased with this. A movie I didn't think we even needed. So the fact that I liked it this much, I was really surprised by. What did you think about it, though?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think just the Spielberg tackling the material, adding his flourishes to the film. The camera is so alive. Some of the numbers, like America, just really enhanced due to the changes to the choreography and the staging, but just like Spielberg's touch just really shines through. Production design, the lighting, a lot of it just really dynamite. And yeah, I mean, it's a classic story, right? And like plot wise, even you don't really remember it, it's you pick it up quick. It's Romeo and Juliet, but the subtle tweaks, I also too had to look some of those up. Didn't really recall, seeing them too much live, but um, I really liked it. I think it's just really fun, and I think especially the first half of the film is like really really tremendous. I think in general, both movies, the second half is kind of the weaker side of things, kind of like the second half of Romeo and Juliet, I guess. But
Sure.
yeah, I liked it quite a bit, and I honestly was thinking a lot about Little Women 2019, something up from Greta Gerwig, something else that you know when it was announced, the usefulness, the need for it kind of came into question. In Little Women's case, Greta Gerwig, that's really going to be the follow up to Lady Bird. Is that really what we're going to do? And then she makes, bar none, the best version of Little Women to date. You're like, oh, that's why. West
Yeah.
Side Story 2021, kind of the same thing. Spielberg getting up there in age. Is this really what you want one of your last few movies to be, an adaptation of a film that won Best Picture? Like, is there
Yeah.
something more to say with that? And I think he definitely earned it. He definitely justified it because it's just a really impressive creation.
Yeah, and Spielberg has talked a lot about why he wanted to do this as a child. He just like loved this movie, and it heavily influences the way he watched movies, his love for movies. So it makes a lot of sense that he would want to. Again, did we need it? You could even still say no, but I think this is really really well done movie. I think one of the things that made me feel a little skeptical at first was who was cast as the leads as
Mm.
Tony and Maria. And when you think about the 1961 movie, I actually don't really think about Tony and Maria that much. I think
No,
about just
they're
the,
the
the
least
sharks and
interesting parts of the whole story. They always have been.
totally. And especially when you think about the 1961 film, you have Natalie Wood cast as Maria, who is Hispanic, from Puerto Rico, and is white. So
Yes,
there's an
Natalie
issue
Wood,
there.
not Latina in any
Yes,
stretch.
not Latina. Yes,
Yeah,
and Richard Bamer just I think giving a very like wooden performance, like not very showy. And I like you said, the parts aren't necessarily made to be super showy. Everyone else kind of gets like Bernardo and Riff are and Anita are much more interesting characters, just period.
yeah,
But um El Gore has been, I think widely criticized for being a pretty wooden performer himself, for being kind of oafish at times on screen. How did you
Yeah.
feel like he did in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, and alongside that, you have the controversy of Al Gore even being in the film at all due to the
Right.
allegations against him. And for what it's worth, this movie was made, and he was cast before those allegations were publicized. On the other hand, he did still do press for the film, so they didn't exactly run away from the fact that he was in the movie. Either way, uh, yeah, I thought he was okay with the singing. Honestly, like he was
Yeah.
good enough. And then some of the other scenes, even though it's Tony Kushner dialogue, and in general, I think Tony Kushner did a pretty good job with the script in terms of having people tweak a script. He's a nice person to hire for this, obviously, given his resume. But yeah, I think some of the other scenes, like like Al Gore just doesn't really have those chops. And like think of a notorious flop from a few years ago, the Goldfinch. Same kind of thing. He just really can't carry some of that material. I think the saving grace of the film, though, is that Rachel Ziegler, new on the scene, as of right now, only 20 years old, is really great as Maria and still does a pretty good job of trying to sell that chemistry because El Gore isn't exactly bringing too much to it.
Yeah, I thought Al Gore. Maybe I liked his performance a little bit more than you did. I think probably the thing that stood out most for me is he just feels a lot older than a lot of the people in the film, and
It's just true
he
in
is.
real life.
Yeah, he is 27, and Ziegler is 20 at this point. So when they filmed this, even
Yeah, I think
younger,
she was like 18 when they made it.
and she looks 18 and she feels 18, and the fact that she gives the performance that she does, she's the real story here, and I feel like she may even have a Oscar worthy performance in this film. But she's just awesome, and I think Spielberg does a really good job of like fleshing out her character more than in the original, so I think she's given a little bit more to work with. um but yeah, I thought they had a little bit better chemistry. I think about the scene of them like on the fire escapes, which first of all
Mhm.
looks incredible and looks so realistic, but like the way like Al Gore is kind of like looking through the gate at her like really starry eyed. I felt like
Yeah.
I felt some chemistry there, or them behind the benches or the bleachers at the gym. I
Oh
thought
yeah,
was also
the
really
dance scene's
convincing.
really good between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree. I think as it goes on, almost when they're getting to the point where they're like trying to like get away, like after the fight, that's when I feel like Al Gore really just did not meet the moment. Like when Valentina tells him that Anita said that Maria is dead because Chino shot her, and Al Gore is like acting all upset. I didn't think that's not going to go on the highlight reel for him. I'll put
No,
it that way.
I actually didn't mind his New York accent. I think part of that's because I believe he grew up in New York, so I guess it makes sense that he knows how to do it. But Ziegler, also from New York, Bergen County, New Jersey, right over there. Um, they auditioned tens of thousands for this film. This was Ziegler's first feature film role. They nailed it. Definitely was a labor of love to make that work. But uh, really, hats off to them for finding her, and also she hit the jackpot because she's been cast as Snow White in the upcoming action adaptation by Disney, and also has a role in Shazam 2 from DC. So Ziegler is a fast rising star, but truly the saving grace, I'd say, of the film. Although I did think there were two other like really big showy performances that are kind of central to this version of West Side Story being so good.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about those. Just want to say real quick, one thing that I think we should give Ziegler a lot of credit for that Natalie Wood did not do in the original was Ziegler actually sang her
Oh yeah,
songs, which Natalie Wood did not do. And Ziegler, her voice is incredible. She's just an absolute dynamite star, going to be on the rise here in Hollywood moving forward. So definitely, this is going to put her on the map, and we'll be talking about her a lot more in the future. I'm gonna guess that one of those people that stood out to you was Mike Faced. Is that right?
yes, as Riff. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought he was amazing.
he was amazing. I was not familiar with Mike Faced, although upon for the review, he was one of the original cast members in Dear Evan Hansen, a theater background from him. But yeah, he's great as Riff. Just has the charisma, but he has the edge. There's not as much edge with the Riff character in the 1961 film, and I really like how some of the tweaks to the screenplay benefit this edging up of the Riff character. Like he's not likable. The Jets in general are made less likable because their nativist attitudes, their racist attitudes toward the Puerto Ricans are not hidden or sanded down in this. I like how the screenplay kind of unites the Jets and the Sharks under the guise of gentrification. Robert Moses tearing down Lower Manhattan in the West Side to build Lincoln Center. I really like how that's like an establishing framing device for this conflict, but they still don't run away from why it's like a racial conflict between these two groups that both feel helpless for different reasons. And Mike Face is just really tremendous as the leader of the Jets.
Yeah, he's a scene stealer. He has a very distinct face, which I think helps.
Yeah.
But that edge clearly comes across, and he gets a couple of scenes where it's like very obvious. Like the scene where they get the gun, and he like the guy's like, "Do you know what you'd even do with this, son?" He puts the gun to his head, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, this guy's got a little bit of a screw loose." Um, but yeah, he comes across as pretty menacing and um still likable in some sense. Like I like still when he got stabbed, I was like, damn, like no, like Riff. But yeah, I thought he was great, and I really liked the change that they made in the song "Cool," to make it just between him and Tony instead of I believe in the original all the Jets did it.
Yeah.
And so making it a duet between them, I thought was a nice change up and really playing alongside El Gore's Tony, who is kind of like toned back. You can really see Riff's like
Riff,
intensity.
don't do that, man.
Yo, Riff, don't do it. So who else stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the other obvious highlight is Ariana DeBose
Mhm.
as Anita. Obviously, Anita in the original film was played by Rita Moreno, so tough shoes to follow.
Yeah,
But Ariana DeBose does have theater background as well. She was in the original Hamilton cast as part of the ensemble, and I think part of the reason that she's so good is the script is getting punched up to kind of give her more work, and they really blow out the America scene, which in general is already a show-stopping moment. But
yep.
in this version, they really make it eye-catching and like huge production values, similar to some of the group dances and songs in the Heights, for example. And yeah, her presence is so essential, but she's really a bigger character than Bernardo, honestly.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I thought that America is seen as that's just the Emmy or the Oscar reel right there. That whole
Yeah,
thing, and
of
just
course,
to kind
doing
of
her own singing again as a theater person.
yeah, and obviously her own dancing as well. To Rita Moreno won, I believe it was Best Supporting Actress
Yeah,
for her role as Anita back in the day. So anyone stepping into these shoes is gonna be a little bit behind the eight ball. But I thought Ariana DeBose was fantastic. The way she swished around that dress, similar to Rita Moreno, was incredible. Her dancing was amazing, but just her overall like presence in the movie, she at, and in one way had like the motherly presence, but in another way had like a very like edgy, like I'm making my own way. I loved in the was it the America scene or I can't remember when they were in the church praying and she kept oh no it was tonight
yeah.
when they were singing tonight and she keeps talking about like wanting to jump Bernardo's bones in the church and they kept shushing her. I just thought she was like super magnetic in that scene and just like she really stood out to me from that. But yeah, I agree. She was great. I also really like David Alvarez as Bernardo. I thought he
Yeah.
was a good I thought he matched Riff pretty well for the most part. So I thought that was great. And obviously he's got to keep up with Ariana DeBose. So there it
Yeah.
takes something there for sure.
Yeah. I think in terms of changes to the film, I think one of the most meaningful and noticeable would be that when there's Spanish dialogue, it's not subtitled. And I really
Yes.
love that, honestly. It's never a question of what they're talking about mood wise. It's still communicated. And a lot of times they basically translate it in English in the next sentence or next few sentences anyway. As someone that knows a little bit of Spanish, that was really fun for me to try and like directly
All
translate
of
it in
them.
my head as they were talking. But I mean, I think that's a really good job to highlight how they're different. Again, in the movie, uh, the sharks, the Puerto Rican characters, the little bronzered up because they're not. None of them are Latinos, and there's way less Spanish in it. So I think that was a really important way to color in those characters. Also, I have to say the actually I was ask you, how do you feel about the Rita Moreno's new role in this? Obviously, the Doc character replaced with Doc's widow Valentina, played by Rita Moreno. Obviously, as we said, the original uh, Anita, and now, at the end of the film, Valentina gets one of the key songs. It's switched, passed over to her. How did you feel about that presence?
Yeah, I want to start with the song first. I liked I liked her getting a moment, right? A nod to an original from the 1961 film. Um, and I thought she sang it okay. I do wish other members of the cast had gotten a chance to like sing maybe other parts of it or like it jumped around a little bit, but I didn't really have too much of a problem with her getting that. Her as Valentina, I thought was like a nice presence, but overall, I wasn't totally like blown away by the part.
I
And
agree.
the change didn't really matter that much to me. I guess she also gets the moment where she gets to like shame the Jets when they are potentially going to rape Anita.
Yeah.
So I think she got a couple of solid moments, but to me it didn't really matter too much. But it seems like you felt the same.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
What about I wanted to see how you felt about Corey Stoll in this movie. I I don't know why. Something about the way he played this, I just found really funny. I don't
yeah.
know if it was his accent, I don't know if it was just his overall demeanor, but something felt a little off to me. But like not in like a horrible way.
Sure. Yeah, in general, I'm a Corey Stoll fan, but I don't remember. Is this a new character from the film? Because in a sense, you're kind of like duplicating efforts with Officer Krupke. Like, there's a song dedicated to Officer Krupke in the police department, which is an amazing moment. Do we really need a separate police figure with a lot of lines? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so Lieutenant Shrank was in the original, played by Simon
Okay.
Oakland, but I think he's supposed to just be more the like hard ass to Krupke's like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
goof.
I guess he communicates the impending doom that is the raising of the
Yeah,
West Side with the gentrification and everything. So that kind of puts that out in the open. But really, he's only in the beginning. On the other hand, I kind of like how that scene unfolds because uh, you get a guy with a nail driven through his ear.
yeah.
They don't really spill any blood in the original movie.
No, so it definitely adds a bit more edge to it. Um, just talking about changes, one thing I wanted to go back to, I forgot to ask. They did change. I feel pretty. Where I believe before it was like before they went out today or before they went out to the dance, I think, and then they moved it
That's
towards the
right.
end of the film, right before they Maria finds out that Tony killed Bernardo. How did you feel about that change?
Yeah, I guess I don't know the text well enough to really notice the difference, but that is definitely a stark change. You're really saving to the last possible moment with that.
I liked the change a lot because not only did it show, I think, how people within that community were working, and a lot of them
Mm,
were in these like cleaning jobs. Um, but it also just was like super fun to watch Rachel Ziegler dancing around this department store, this like
mhm.
1960s department store. Just looked really cool, and she played it perfectly. And I don't know if that song adds a lot of meaning to the movie. Um, in terms of like moving the plot along. So
Yeah.
For me, it didn't really. I thought it was like a nice change just because it was different and looked cool. But what else about the movie? I mean,
Well,
what did you like? What didn't you like?
yeah. So I think this is kind of a key thing, right? West Side Story, all versions of it, the songs are tremendous. You know,
Mhm.
lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, who just recently passed away. The songs are tremendous, and so many of the songs really hit. Tonight, America, even something that's a little detoury, like Officer Crumpkey. Like there's just dynamite songs. Even the Jet song. You know, you don't really like the Jets too much, but I really do like saying when you're a jet all the
Yeah,
way.
all the
Like
way.
it's just really catchy shit. You know,
Mhm.
and I think all the production values, the acting, the songs really build up the film, build up the story, and they that's kind of where you have to stand with. Do you care enough about the some of the weaknesses of the story, of the plot? Maria and Tony, not the most interesting characters in the story, and still not like super developed. You just kind of have to believe that these are star-crossed hormonal lovers. There's not logic with this. They just love each other. I think for some people, Maria still wanting to be with Tony after Tony kills Bernardo doesn't make any sense. And I think you just kind of have to accept this is Romeo and Juliet and that they're just dumb kids.
Yeah, I mean that was my whole thing. I was thinking for the last like 20 minutes, like,
Yeah.
there's no way this relationship could ever work. Like, what are you guys
Right.
doing? But yeah, you just kind of have to suspend belief, I think, a bit for that. A couple things I just wanted to like point out that I think obviously the 1961 is a classic, always going to be considered that way. But why I think this is like a better movie, technology's just come so far where you can like the camera moved around so much in this movie and moved around with the dancing, and it made it so much more engaging than just
Yes.
single camera in one place watching them dance around. Really loved that. And some of the shots in this, I mean, if you look at the two backgrounds we have on YouTube, one of them's at the dance and one of them is during America outside while Anita is dancing. But just like the way the angles that Spielberg picked, I think about the fight between the sharks and the jets near the end in that salt warehouse, and it's like
Yeah.
shot overhead as they
Top
walk
down with the
in,
shadows. So
yeah,
good.
and the shadows walk towards each other. Just amazing stuff. And there's just moments like that all throughout where Spielberg's eye is just, he's still a master at this. So uh really, really engaging film. Music was good, performances were good. Is this thing gonna clean up at the Oscars again? Is this gonna be 1962 Oscars all over?
Yeah. So, I mean, 10 wins, 11 noms. I don't think we're going that far with any film this year, but I would definitely think Best Picture is one of the safer bets for this film, honestly.
Mhm.
You know, it's been critically adored and it's well-known property to film fans. So I don't see why that would change. You know, it's definitely in that mix. Spielberg director, I'd say very unlikely given how uh, busy that category is almost every year. I think so. There's obviously probably some down ballot stuff that'll get noticed for music and production and costumes and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the key things to watch are Ziegler and Moreno
Yeah.
performances, and Ziegler definitely seems like the more likely of the two. But Best Actress is also going to be a slugfest this year. There's a ton of contenders. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to predict a Best Picture win right now, but I definitely think it'll be being nominated, and that's despite the poor box office.
Yeah, I think this has a good chance to get a lot of love at the Oscars. I think you're right. No movie is probably ever gonna do what this movie did in 1961 again, but I think there's a high chance that this movie will get a lot of nominations and probably a couple wins. So
Yeah,
it's funny because I don't think any of the male performances were that good. I mean, Feist was probably or Face was probably the closest one, but I don't think he'll get
yeah,
a
I agree.
nomination.